Hello and welcome to Property Money Trees Maximising Property Values, the once a month show where I break down the steps of how to recognise, enhance, and then extract the values in property in order to create wealth. Would you like to find out how you can benefit from the steps of maximising property values? This is even if you don't own a property yet or have a deposit. If that's a yes, then you're in the right place to find out. My name is Patricia Faber, and although many know me for my work as a solicitor, on this show you will be getting the benefit of my 30 plus years worth of experience of maximising property values, experience which has given me a net worth in millions. So who might benefit from listening to this show? Literally anyone with an interest in creating property wealth. So Sam, we are here to listen to you. Please update us what's been happening with auctions.
Thanks for the invite to give an update on what's happening in the auction space, the market. Just looking at David Sandeman, the EIG newsletter, which I read almost every month. It's interesting to note how much the auction space has grown. Going into lockdown, we had probably about 2% of properties are being sold. So if you use Rightmove and Zoopla as the market, the real estate market in the UK, of all the properties that were listed on Rightmove and Zoopla, about 2% of those were auction properties that have been sold via auction. That's going into lockdown. But post-lockdown, that's changed considerably. I think the current percentage now is right about say 6%. So it's been a massive, about threefold increase in the volume of properties that have been offered as auction. And apart from the fact that now auctions are a lot more probably accessible to many people, the fact that auctions are no longer being offered in ballrooms, they're offered now on, virtually. What that means is most of the auction companies now are able to do a minimum of one auction a month. Some do two auctions a month. If you think about this for a moment, before lockdown, it was a 7 week cycle. That was almost religious. No one offered a property. No one had an auction that was closer than 7 weeks apart. So they thought they needed 3 weeks to get stock and then 4 weeks to market. But right now, things have changed significantly, where no one requires 4 weeks marketing period anymore. Now you can do a 2 weeks marketing period because it's all online. You don't have to print brochures like they used to do before lockdown, where you had to print a catalog and get them transported and posted to people so they receive them in time. Right now, the market is so dynamic and fluid. Hence, why there's so much. Like Salvos has two auctions a month. It's just mind blowing how many properties that they bring onto the market. They just come on. They've got a long list, and then very soon, then there's one at the beginning of the month. There's one at the end of the month. They have two teams that are working on different auctions. Auction House London has one big auction a month, and then they have what they call mini catalog that they offer mid of the month. Almost everyone is doing Bernard Marcos is like monthly with 300-400 lots. So the market is actually grown significantly with uh, things being done virtually. And to really to underline this one point I must make is that increase of almost about 4% increase. It can be a lot of it can be attributed to the modern method, because the modern method of auction, which is being offered by estate agents, it's really increased the volume of properties. Because if you go to Rightmove and Zoopla, when you search for auction properties, you see a lot more because of modern method. So that percentage increase can be attributed a lot more to the modern method of auction, which is slightly different from traditional. But hopefully, I might get the chance to give that difference. If not, it could be for a different day. Then, but what's happened with all this increase is, of course, there's the amount of money that's being realized from auctions every month now in the UK has gone up significantly. Apart from us having a lot more volume, there's a lot more higher tickets that are being sold at auction than before lockdown. There are certain types of properties that people will say, "Well, this is not a lock. This is not an auction lot. It cannot go to auction." Right now, on almost everything that's sellable, everyone that wants to sell their property, it goes to auction. And like currently, I'm working on taking on a property in Staines. It's actually on an island by itself. You drive on a bridge that goes only to that house. The house is actually built on pylons because it floods once in a while, but it's a massive house. But it's been built with floods in mind. So when it floods, the owners are not worried that it is flooding underneath. So things are this kind of properties before lockdown, they would never see. No one would even think of auctions at all. But they've been trying to sell it for about 2.5 million for a long time. It sits on a massive estate, and it's not been so. I'm actually taking it to salvos for the family to be sold at auction. These are the kind of properties that before lockdown, people no one will put it at auction. So the auction market has changed a lot. And then, so coming down to in terms of regions, Yorkshire, not that sort of like the north, east, and northwest, they've seen one of the biggest increases, especially Yorkshire area. It's really the numbers have grown significantly. Coming down to the Midlands as well, you can see there have been lots of uptake of auctions, and then of course London. Like I said, with London, it's the volume, the ticket prices in London they're going much bigger. I think auction house sold last month. They sold their biggest ever ticket, big building in Bournemouth. So auctions are getting more and more accessible. Those that lot that they sold in Bournemouth, it's a lot that would not have been a lot before the lockdown. That you say, nah, that this will not work at auction. But right now, almost every type of property is now suitable for auction as long as it's priced well. So all you have to do now is get the pricing right, and then the marketing. In general, I would say auctions are becoming more and more just acceptable as as a venue for selling a property. It's no longer quirky or some specific properties that have to go. Then, in terms of say for the audience, in terms of what is coming up, that's probably that being observed. Somehow, we seem to have I must say the failure rate at auction to complete has increased a lot significantly actually. Post lockdown, the amount of people that used to buy a property and not complete was so insignificant, but that number has grown a lot. It's gone up much higher. Again, that's to do with modern method of auction as well, because modern method of auctions are being offered by estate agents that are most of the time they're not very savvy. They don't quite understand legal parts. So they're salespeople by and large. They're not property people. So they're quite keen to get it on. When you go to buy, they're very nice to you. Then you exchange. They get their commission or what they call the reservation fee, which is non-refundable, and often they do that. And I'll tell you a typical case like shortlists, right? If you pay a reservation and then you find out maybe there's something in the section 20 notice that was not that it wasn't covered in the legal pack, so you have to put you could not you can't complete the transaction. So there's a lot of failure with modern method, even though modern method was meant to make things a lot easier, but because of the way it's been articulated, there are a lot more people that are paying that reservation fee and then walking away from it. So there's been a lot higher percentage of of uncompleted auction transactions lately, more in terms of volume to do with modern method, but generally as well, because a lot more people are buying from auction, a lot of people are making mistakes as well, maybe just bidding. It's amazing the amount of people that just see an auction property and then they bid and then they haven't checked on the legal pack or they haven't done anything at all. It's quite a lot of people that are still doing it, that are doing so. Then, in terms of an update as well, one of the reasons as well is there's so many AI tools that are helping with legal pack reviews. Even though that's a story for a different day as well, it's most people end up being overwhelmed by the reports. But that said, there's so many tools out there now. Like on the click of a button, you can upload a legal pack and you get a report within like 5-10 minutes. It's what you do with that report that might be it's up to individuals how experienced they are. And I can see in the room some of the faces I can recognize here. The people that if they got that report, they can make sense out of it, but unfortunately, maybe some of the slightly less experienced people, they're getting those reports. Maybe they're probably not able to make sense of it or as much as they could. But one of the factors has actually made auctions a lot more accessible is really those AI tools, because it just means people that are in the room that are experienced, they will save on having to pay a solicitor every time you saw a property. You could just run that report, take your time, go through the report, and then see if the report makes sense for you to continue with the property without the need of getting a solicitor involved. So I think in terms of general auctions, market sentiment, I think that's probably covered. And then coming down to specific type of lots that are coming up. Um, right now, it's bungalows. Everyone is like looking for bungalows across the country. It's like why suddenly bungalows were like sort of a niche product that people didn't want, but right now everyone wants to buy a bungalow. It's like, do you have a bungalow, especially if it's detached? And that's linked to a different demand, which is for C2 uh, children's homes. So there's a massive demand in for children's homes. So that's driven the market for things like bungalows, and then up north in some of the northeast areas, I said the market is suddenly booms in there. Is that they had detached properties that were so cheap, but as brick and mortar, they were not worth buying. They were struggling to sell, but right now people are buying them more linked to the C2, i.e., getting planning for children's homes. Because the C2 industry is it's a very interesting one, even though it's nothing to do with auctions, but it's fueling the auction market. Because if you have a children's home, say in London, it's in Harrow. I've got one a C2 property that I was selling for like well 550. If you buy that home, you probably need to invest about 70 to 100,000 to actually be able to use it to do all kinds of update on it. And then once you've done it as a landlord, you probably list it for about £4,500. But you step out up north, you can buy a property for less than half the price and then do it up. But when you list it, you could probably list it for about 3, 5, 4,000. So you probably list it about £1,000 or £2,000 lower. But so you get more for your money up north. So that's I think it's one of the key things that's driving acquisitions up north. Properties that people were not buying in Doncaster, in Yorkshire, that were detached properties, no one wanted to buy them. But right now, they've suddenly found a big demand for it. So those are some of the things that are driving the market. Then we're seeing a lot of failed projects on the market as well. So it's a huge amount of properties that are being sold that are uncompleted HMO projects. You can see all the they've been sealed up by receivers. So it's on completed sites, construction sites that have been sold by receivers. So because if you think about not so long ago, we had a few bridging companies in the UK. Right now, there are about 250 bridging companies, and then lots of private lenders. So there's a lot more liquidity in the lending market, of course. So there's a lot of uptake of borrowing, which of course it brings a lot more failure of projects as well, especially with the build cost and builders are the weak link. That so it's huge. If you look at every single catalog, you see maybe four, five, sometimes more on completed projects that you buy. Someone's maybe done a HMO, they've fitted, or maybe the bathroom, but they haven't done tiling, and then they run out of money, or the builder has walked away. It's so in the catalogs, you're seeing a lot of properties that are on completed projects.
Brilliant, Sam. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very, very much. I've been listening, and thinking, oh, do you know what? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But again, if you can just talk us again, just give us an auction talk. So you've given us the update. So how does that actually? How does it lie with like a basic auction thing? If somebody wants to put their property in an auction, what should they be thinking about? What do they need to do? How do they go about it? And how might you be able to help? Which direction do you think they ought to be considering? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so myself, Sam Fongho, but this is Midas Property Auction. What we do, we're an auction brokerage firm. So what that means is we have our clients list property at auction or acquire properties out of auction. Um, I think, fun enough, our services are probably more required now than ever before, um, because before when an auction company had one auction every 7 weeks, they had one catalog. They treated the catalog like wedding invitations. They invite in close families. They put them in, get it all ready. But right now, with Star was having two auctions a month, they just haven't got time to offer TLC to any lot. Right now, it's auctions are like drive through in McDonald's, right? Where I could just imagine someone has like 10 boxes, they're trying to put chips into all of them. Because there's a massive car queue of cars picking up at the till. It's what auctions are right now. So what we do as a brokerage firm is that we don't have that many lots. We don't. Salvos will have 300 lots, but we have a few lots. We will put them in, and then we list them with the auction company. It doesn't cost the vendor anymore, but we would make sure that one, you have the right solicitor, and the solicitor does the legal part well, because we are buyers as well, so we know what a buyer should see, what will give a buyer comfort. We will advise you on how to position your property, what documents you need to make sure you have in there, because like I said, the volume that is going to auction and is actually increased, so you need to actually stand out. And right now on auction companies, you just take anything that comes. If it doesn't sell, they move on. So for us, our services have become more important now than the way before lockdown, where people say, "Why should I come through you when I can just list straight with an auction?" Right now, you need a middle person in there, both for the buying and for the selling. Because in terms of buying, because there's so much volume coming on, no one has the time to actually look at it all through, apart from us that we're doing it as a profession. So we try and keep up. Even us, we struggle to keep up with everything that's going to auction. And of course, because of personal relations, sometimes if auctioneers know that you're looking for certain things, and that hits a deck, they probably call you and say, "Sam, we've got a nice detached property in Yorkshire that this could do for C2. Do you have anyone that's looking for C2? I just thought I'd give you a heads up." So you might have that. So in terms of our service that we offer, that's where we sit. We are brokers. We are a brokerage firm in terms of helping people sell and buy. And apart from the auctions as well, we help acquire properties off market, distressed properties, and they will sell distress as well. So if someone is in a situation where their property is about to be repossessed, or they don't want the banks to sell them, because when the banks repossess them, they tend to sell them quite low. Apart from being low, the handling charges, the receivers just would make sure that they pay themselves out of your equity. So if you really need to cut them out and sell, you can talk to us. We can help you to that. Okay, so Patricia, I think that's a bit of about me and about what I do.
So Sam, I know that you've spoken about, preparing a bundle, getting a right solicitor to do the work. But what can a vendor do? So that's a seller. What can a seller do to make their property a lot more attractive in auctions?
So it's good. Then coming to your question, Patricia, about what a vendor should do to make that property stand out in auction. Apart from saying to use us, which is how to say that, use a listing agent like ourselves. There are quite a few people that offer the same service, not just us. But if you key thing is your legal pack. Make sure that the legal pack is done by a good auction solicitor. It's not every solicitor that can do a good legal packs or that has experience with auctions. So make sure that they're done and you put a legal pack up as soon as possible. Because most solicitors would say, well, we'll put a legal pack just before the auction day. A lot of people do not want to go see a property if they haven't seen the legal pack, because it's an important aspect of it. That's why I always say it's the opportunity at times is hidden in the legal pack. So most people, when there's a property, that they're not going to go view it unless they've seen the legal pack. So if your legal pack comes out very late, then you're likely to have lost some potential buyers. Then secondly is the pricing as well. It makes a massive difference. I'm selling for a housing association. We had a property in DA6, just off the M25. We put it at auction for was about 230, which is what they wanted. So we had to. It was just so high that there was hardly anyone coming to the auction to the viewings. I managed to convince them to lower their reserve to about I think to 190, so that I could guide it 170. My God, the open house was 170, 165. We got overrun on the open house, and then when it went into the room, they got 241. So they got a lot more than they were expecting, but they only got that by going lower. So the auction before, when it didn't sell, if someone had bid, they would have bought it cheaper because it was listed higher with a higher reserve. So it's the auction psychology. It's just mind blowing, because it was a rundown, a big property in a very nice area in Kent, but just the pricing did not was not attractive at the first outing. When the pricing went quite low, it got really overrun by people. And at times when you go to an open house, there are like 6, 7 people around with their builders, and it end up like 10. And really, psychologically, people think, oh, I'm going to fit in this property. They ended up selling it much higher. So your pricing is quite important.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you there? So if that was a housing association, they wanted or needed 235,000, but you were able to guide it at 170. Now I know that it used to be the case that in the legal packs, people could say we're not obliged to sell to you at a certain price. I think that might have changed. But what else might a vendor do if, say, for instance, let's say somebody has a mortgage on a property, say the mortgage is 235, so we're looking at, the example that you gave, so they can't really afford to sell it for less than 235, but they've guided it at 170 in the hope that it's going to get them more than the 235. um, if somebody then successfully bids, let's say at 180, what can the vendor do in that kind of scenario? That would be helpful to know. Is there insurance that maybe a vendor can take out, or is there a particular clause? So I'm literally just asking because that just came into my head as you were speaking.
Okay, no, I think that's a brilliant question. For me, as an auction broker, responsible one, I must say, the first question I ask vendors, how much are you owing on your property? Because I just, so at some stage, if they tell me a number and I just say, I think this is not for auction, you probably need to take it because the reserve, you cannot set the reserve less than the outstanding balance of the mortgage because the person would have to do it. I, funny enough, myself and David Sandeman, we exchanges WhatsApps all the time. I've seen some really poor practice, what I call poor practices within legal parks, where under special condition, the solicitors are given the vendor the right to change, especially somebody the modern method that the vendor has 48 hours to change your mind. And if they don't, I think that it's no longer an auction. If the vendor can change your mind and not deliver the property, then what's the point having an auction if the vendor can change your minds? So me and myself and David, we have this. When I look through legal park and I see those kind of statements, and I've seen quite a few people that put those statements in where that it gives a cooling off period of 48 hours for the vendor to change your mind. For me, when I see it, I walk away. It's not an auction. You cannot give a vendor the right. In terms of the housing association ones that we're selling, luckily for us, they well, they've had them for a long time, right? So the value has really increased. But some of them they had what they call joint ownership, or is it shared ownership of so there's a the vendor and the housing association were in some 50-50 partnership. So usually we're having to manage your expectation of the housing association and the person that lives in the property on how to best take it to the market. But luckily, most of the properties that I'm actually looking at in terms of for the housing association, they've got lots around Kent area, but they've had them for a long time, so there is headroom in terms of them selling. In terms of an insurance policy, Patricia, I don't think there's any policy that will allow you to sell your property below how much you owe the bank, and then they'll cover the difference. You have to set your reserve above your redemption figure.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. And I hope that at the very least you have found the talk thought provoking. If you enjoyed the show, please do subscribe. In any event, please do rate and review the episode because it would be great to read your feedback. Thank you very much and hopefully see you next month.